Currently, we await government's publication of the outcome of the land panel. As you can recall, government appointed a number of people to come up with solutions for the land issue in South Africa. Our own president, Dan Crick, one of the well-known farmers, Nick Serfontein, and some of our well-known economists like Wandile at AgriSAs, they all serve on this panel. So yes, we await quite anxiously what will the outcome of that be. Meanwhile, at AgriSA, we are part of ASUF. We came up with our own solutions, and what we are saying is you don't need to change the constitution. The land issue is not a constitutional issue. It's a human capacity issue. We could have been far down the line in terms of land reform and equitable distribution of land if people in various government departments did what they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So yes, you can change the constitution. That is not going to solve your problem. So what we are saying is government must take control over the land issue. Government, and if the president is serious about the situation, he needs to establish a war room, so to speak, under his watch. That war room must set targets. And what government is saying is, let's look at state land, what can be distributed, communal land to be distributed, also land owned by churches, huge tracts of land owned by municipalities, etc. So that type of land be expropriated through the normal procedures, and then you set targets. You will then say, as this war room, we want X amount of land to be distributed. Rural Development Land Reform, the Deeds Office, all the other institutions that are part of that, you need to implement that process. And then you need to report back to us. The most critical part of that is who's going to get the land. Because we've been on many farms that has been distributed through the restitution process and through the land reform process. And the big question is, what is happening on that land? I was shocked when I got to many of these farms to discover that nothing is happening. The infrastructure that was there is gone. Once productive farms are no longer in existence. Who are the people that suffer? The poorest of the poor. The workers' houses are flattened. The workers are no longer there. The workers don't receive any income anymore. The farmer that was the leading figure on that farm, him and his family are no longer there. There's no economic activity on that farm. If there's no economic activity on that farm, it means there's no economic contribution towards the local economy. And that for us is one of the big reasons for this high levels of poverty in South Africa, the high levels of unemployment, as well as the high levels of economic distress that municipalities currently experience. You cannot just have a lot of poor people within a municipal district. You need to have investment inflow into that district. Business people that come in to set up factories, to operate farms, to indulge in a lot of economic activities. And once those economic activities happen, then you can appoint people. Currently, many of our local areas are facing serious economic challenges because of farms where there is no production anymore. So what we are saying is we do not have a constitutional problem. We've got a human capacity problem, and more so, if the president can take charge of this process, there's the war room, there's Department of Rural Development Land Reform and the Deeds Office, etc., that must implement that program. And then you've got DAF that assists with the extension services and with the other forms of help. And then you have the private sector as a partner to play a critical role in terms of mentoring people, in terms of input supplies, in terms of opening up the value chain, in terms of capacitating people, empowering people to understand how the value chain works within agriculture. And that for us is the golden thread. If you leave any one of those partners out of the equation, then you're not going to be successful in terms of land reform in South Africa. For too long, government and other players have decided what is in the best interest of agriculture. And that is one of our biggest mistakes. If you leave the farmer out of the equation, then you're going to have serious problems. Farmers know best how to drive the sector forward. And that's why ASUF stands for Agricultural Sector Unity Forum. It consists of the 4 major agricultural unions in South Africa. That's AgriSA, that is NAFU, that's AFASA and TAU. They came then together to say, but let us develop a plan by the farmers, for the farmers, and for the entire agricultural sector. A plan that is best suited and that is pragmatic. And one of the suggestions then that we have made from our side is that there's a very easy way to solve the problem of land reform in South Africa. You need to have a top-down approach. You need to have a program that sets specific targets. And we must move away from these big announcements. We have transferred 1 million hectares of land. What does that mean? What does it mean? 1 million hectares of land. We have now 400 commercial farmers. What does that mean? We need to have specific targets that relate to specific projects. I would rather say, let's identify 1,000 projects. And then you say, right, project 1 is in the Western Cape. These are the farmers from previously disadvantaged backgrounds that are involved in that project. These are the commercial sector partners that are involved in terms of input, in terms of production, in terms of making sure that product forms part of the value chain and gets to the market. And then you make sure that various other departments assist with extension services, with infrastructure development, etc. But then that project, right, on a regular basis, there's a report about that project, and you can also mitigate various risks that relate to that project. And you do have a team in the province that makes sure that the 100 projects in the Western Cape, for example, those projects are managed well. There's good governance structures in place. There's no corruption. You mitigate all kinds of risk, and you make sure it's a successful agricultural project. We sit currently with 5,400 government farms. Government has purchased. People that are on that land don't know how to farm. You sit with more than 1,000 CPAs, communal property associations, that received land through the restitution process. Many of them are dysfunctional. People are selling the land without government even knowing about those transactions. And you find government officials that are stealing farms. There was a couple of cases now, more than 50 farms, that Rural Development Land discovered that the people that were supposed to be the beneficiaries, they don't even know that that farm belongs to them. It's government officials that are operating on those farms. Now, where in your life have you ever heard about something like that? And how can it be allowed? So what we are saying is, there are very specific projects all over the country. Those projects and the project leaders or whoever is responsible for those various agricultural projects must report to government. You need to have a set of independent people, an oversight committee that must go to those projects to know what's happening there. And then those projects must be based on good partnerships. You can involve the agribusinesses. In the Eastern Cape, for example, agribusinesses do unbelievable work on many of those dysfunctional farms. They were brought in together with the commodity organizations, because that's where your specialists sit, and then with the previously disadvantaged farmers or farming group. That is the type of partnership that will endure at the end of the day, and that will be sustainable over the long term. And then you've got an agreement to say, right, after 10 or 15 years, those partners gradually step out so that people then can farm independently. The drought has a devastating impact on farmers. I receive letters on a daily basis. Farmers begging us to intervene, to talk to banks. What we've seen is that many of our farmers in the Northern Cape facing serious challenges. They haven't had rain for the past 5 to 6 years. You also see a large number of farmers contemplating just selling off their assets. The problem is, who will be interested in a farm where there's no water? Water is the lifeblood of agriculture. And more so, who will be interested in a farm that has no market value? And the big problem is those farmers face huge debt. They owe the banks millions of rands. And unfortunately, the banks are bound by the National Credit Act. They need to act. And a large portion of the debt is with your agricultural businesses, because they again serve as an intermediary for many of our bigger banks. So if the farmer cannot pay back his loans or her loans to the intermediary, the agribusinesses, it means the agribusinesses cannot refund the banks again for the money they've made available. So what we find is that there's a serious challenge for all the players within the money or the financing, agricultural financing space. And we need to find a solution for that. Because it's one thing to declare a farmer bankrupt and to put that farmer onto auction. But who's going to replace that farmer with his many years of experiences, with his high levels of resilience? It's not easy to farm. People think they can just hand out land. It's not easy to farm. It's one of the highest risk economic activities in South Africa, but also in other parts of the world. Because one moment you face a massive drought, the next moment you face a massive flood, then there's all kinds of pests like the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. Suddenly you can't export your meat to the rest of the world, and your wool, and then you face dumping. You have a good price for your chicken, and then you find there's a lot of dumping from other countries into South Africa, and then your price drops. And then you face the massive risk of criminal activities. People come during the day or during the night, they come and murder you and your family. And then on top of it all, you've got a government that is sort of hostile towards you. And what do you do as a farmer? You as a farmer, you assist government with ensuring food security in this country. Remember, that's a constitutional obligation that rests on government. It's written in Section 27 of the Constitution that every person has a right to enough food and enough water. And farmers play a critical role to assist government in realizing their own constitutional mandate. But these are the very people that government is hostile towards. And that hostility is embedded in the policy uncertainty, pronouncements that there will be expropriation without compensation. The impact of that uncertainty has had a major impact on farming in South Africa, and specifically investment into farming. Just yesterday, I had a horror story somewhere in the Western Cape, a farm that produced produce for the export market, more than 500 workers. Nobody is interested in buying that farm due to the uncertainty. In other words, 500 workers might lose their jobs. If that farm is taken out of production, it has a major impact on our ability to earn foreign exchange, which is so critical for growth and development in South Africa. So I don't think there's anyone else in this country, that has the commitment to invest in land and that are prepared to mitigate the risk than many of our farmers. But these are the very people that often bear the brunt of these type of hostile pronouncements by political parties and the lack of empathy by government and government officials. If government is serious about food security, it would have announced a lot of measures already, like state guarantees, etc., to prevent farmers from going bankrupt. But it hasn't done so. I always say if we think we've got a crisis on hands with electricity shortages and water shortages, wait until the day that we have no food in this country. Then we're going to have war. And it's something that we cannot afford. So what we are saying is stop playing politics. The plans are there. The people are there. The commitment is there to turn things around in South Africa. And stop with this obsession with all kinds of ideologies that have created even more misery throughout the world. Be pragmatic and support the drivers of economic growth. And who are those drivers? Those are agripreneurs or any other entrepreneur in this country. And give them the freedom, give them the certainty, so that they know if they invest money into a specific project, that there will be a return on that investment. And that's all what people are asking. And through that return on investment, you create jobs, you create economic growth, you create all kinds of other opportunities.